Welcome to the Personal Pension Radio Podcast, where it's all about helping you complete your financial journey to retirement. Discover time-tested strategies and get unconventional insights into wealth building and retirement that actually work. Break away from the herd and go for the retirement you dream of. And now, here's your host, the income engineer, Kraig Strom.
All right, rock and roll back on Personal Pension Radio. Thank you so much for joining me. Episode number 192. That is amazing. Episode number 192. Thank you so much for downloading the podcast, listening to the podcast. I've heard from listeners who have shared it with friends and family. I really appreciate all the support, and I appreciate the questions and the feedback that have been coming in. Please remember, Kraig with a K at kraigstrom.com. Any question you might have, if you want something more specific for your personal situation, Kraig at kraigstrom.com. Please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can also find me on social media, Facebook, Google, all over the place. If you spell my name right, Kraig with a K, Kraigstrom, I'm usually the first 5 pages of Google in the search results. It's always nice having that Kraig with a K. So as you heard, if you're new to the show, I am the income engineer. My mission, my passion is retirement income planning. Retirement is a big open-ended question now for a lot of folks. Like retirement, when I was growing up, I kind of took the cue from my mom and dad that, retirement was this age and you work, and then you stop working. Well, life is different now. I mean, it's very different for me. I look at my work and the passion and the things I get to do and enjoy. And 65 years old is just not a number that kind of makes sense for me just to stop working. So for you, whatever your retirement dream is, the Wall Street machine is out there with this massive marketing budget. I've talked about this before, that Wall Street spends billions of dollars marketing the investment world and retirement advice. They just spend a huge amount of money, and it's difficult for contrary messages. And yes, my message is often very contrary to the Wall Street mantra of save more money. The solution to retirement is save more money, invest more money. If you lost your dog, it's because you didn't invest enough money. If you got a flat tire, clearly you should invest more money. Doesn't matter what the question is or the situation is. The answer from Wall Street was when I started 20 plus years ago, and it is today. The answer is, just save more money. Just invest more money. Give us more money. I'm here to tell you that maximum retirement income, maximum lifestyle income after you sell a business or after you retire is not a product. It's not insurance. It's not annuities. It's not real estate. It's not mutual, investments and things like that. And it's a strategy, folks. It's an actual strategy where you put all of these various things together in the right balance. That's where maximum retirement, maximum lifestyle income comes from. That's what I do. That's my passion. Now, of course, I announced on the show and I have announced publicly that I also work with a phenomenal law firm, one of the best asset protection and business and personal estate planning law firms that you could ever ask for. I am proud to be part of the team over there. I'm actually a paralegal on the law firm side and a certified financial planner. It's like having the best of both worlds where I can bring the full, complete breadth of a team like that to every one of my clients. And if you want to become a client or consider becoming a client, please don't hesitate. Again, Kraig at kraigstrom.com. Now, quick disclosure, and I want to jump right in. I've got a lot to go over today. I am not an attorney. I did just mention that. I'm a paralegal at a law firm. I work under the supervision of a phenomenal attorney and a group of attorneys. I'm not a CPA. I am a certified financial planner professional. As qualified as this really cool Amazon mic sounds, makes me sound, please don't act on things that you hear on this show as if you're hearing advice for you personally, because you're not. You really need to meet with a qualified financial planner. Please, dear goodness me, don't take advice from people like Dave Ramsey, financial entertainers on radio, podcast, or TV. Meet with a qualified financial planner to go over your specific situation. Now, I am going to jump in with Deal of the Week. I've actually had quite a few of these. I don't always seek out a Deal of the Week, but this is Kraig's Deal of the Week. Someone asked me recently about my Deal of the Week because I basically posted a video on Facebook about my workshop where I record my podcast. And I have a wood shop in my backyard, that I record my podcast here on one of my engineering tables in the workshop. And as I was walking around, my whole video I did a couple weeks ago was all about my quest for lifestyle deflation. Lifestyle deflation. The idea that in today's modern technology world, it is just not necessary to just blindly pay retail and just walk up to a counter or click a button and just pay retail. If you just take a quick sec and research it, you'll often find a better deal, a better price. You don't have to pay full price is what my quest is. So as I walked around my workshop where I'm sitting right now, and I realized there's virtually nothing in this shop that I could quickly, easily put my finger on that I paid full price for. I mean, I really love the hunt. I love the fact that I was able to equip this workshop to the level that I have and spend a fraction of what it would have cost that in workshops that I've been in. I've been in workshops with friends and people that I know, and they just spend retail. And they spent thousands of dollars, thousands more than I did. And my shop, I think, is better equipped than the shops that I'm referencing. And yet I spent a fraction, right? So somebody asked me, where did this Deal of the Week come from? When they heard my shop tour, I said, well, it comes from Clark Howard. ClarkHoward.com. I've been listening to Clark Howard and his radio show and podcast for many years. And Clark really inspired me with that Deal of the Week because Clark Howard, he goes on various radio shows around the country because he's got a syndicated radio show. So he'll do little guest spots on radio shows all around the country. And one of them happens to be here in Los Angeles on KFI. He does a little spot there, Clark's Deal of the Week for many years. So this is Kraig's Deal of the Week, right? Deal of the Week. This week, spark plugs. Yep, spark plugs. So my wife has a 2006 Honda Civic Hybrid. 2006, this is the early days of hybrid in the Honda world. Back in 2006, good little car, and we bought it used. Got it really cheap from a gentleman who was 900 years old, and he had long since stopped driving the car. And we got a great deal on a used 2006 Honda Civic Hybrid. And my wife will probably drive that car until it explodes because she just likes her little car. So she's got, 120, 30,000 plus miles on the car. And it started to hesitate and sputter, and it was having some problems, and it threw up a check engine light, and she made it home okay and said, well, we don't know what's wrong with it. I said, that's okay. I have an OBD reader, right? An onboard diagnostic reader. It's a little computer plug-in that fits right into the OBD reader plug in. Most every modern car has them. And I got it on Amazon, I think, for, less than $15. It's just some, cheapy little inexpensive little chip reader that connects to my iPhone. So I grabbed my OBD reader and I plugged it into her car. And sure enough, it showed me on my iPhone the code. And it said that I had 2 cylinders that were not firing right. We had misfires in the cylinders. And then we went to the Google machine, and Amy, my wife, she Googled it and looked up the code. And the very first thing that it said in multiple times was spark plugs. Spark plugs. I kind of figured that's what it was, but I'm not manly enough, to have an active knowledge of automotive repair. So we Googled it. and it said, get some spark plugs. Okay. So now my wife Amy goes to Amazon because we are Amazon Prime customers, and she researches the spark plugs, exactly the model number on the spark plugs, and it pops up. They're $9.50 roughly a piece. Now, here's the fun part about this little Honda Civic Hybrid. It's a 4-cylinder, tiny little hamster wheel hybrid, but it requires 4 spark plugs in the front and 4 in the back. 2 spark plugs per cylinder. 8 total spark plugs in this little 4-banger. What the heck? So she priced them out. Now, she was going to buy them, and I said, hey, wait a second. I have a car dealership license, which also allows me to set up wholesale accounts with parts stores. I have a great wholesale account at a tire warehouse. I've got a wholesale account at a parts place. Maybe I could set up a wholesale account with the Honda dealership in town, and maybe we could get a better price than $9.50, because that's kind of expensive. Got to get 8 of these things. It's kind of crazy. So my wife called Honda in our local town, Honda Cars of Corona, called up the parts department and gave them the information and verified she was looking at the same spark plug. And the guy on the other end of the phone says, yep, I've got them in stock. And my wife says, okay, how much are they? Remember, Amazon, $9.50. At the Honda dealership, my wholesale price, $20 each. $20 each. Unbelievable. I mean, we were both blown away. My wife thought he was kidding. My wife thought he made a mistake, right? So it cost us $76 on Amazon. They were delivered to the house within 1 day, as opposed to well, let me go through this. Of course, yes, $20, $160 would have been the price at the dealership. $76 on Amazon. But if you imagine, right, we would have also paid money to have them installed if we went to the dealership. We would have paid at least $180 to have the dealership research it and then tell us that it was spark plugs and then charge us $160 for spark plugs. So I estimated at the very least, this whole thing would have cost $340 minimum. Now, I can change spark plugs. I would submit to you, listener, male, female, young or old, you can change your own spark plugs. It is not rocket surgery. It is not that hard. Like I said, I'm not a manly man, automotive mechanic kind of guy, but I could take out a spark plug. That wasn't hard at all. So I spent $76. I put the spark plugs in and out myself. I saved $264 minimum. Now, let's be honest. It probably would have cost way more because the dealership would have given us the whole runaround about what's wrong with the car, and we got to diagnose it, and it's going to take 4 hours, and that's $95 an hour and all this other stuff. But let's just say that I saved $264. I saved 340% over going to the dealership to have them deal with the spark plugs. Minimum 340%. That's my deal of the week. Oh, gosh, I love that, right? $20 a piece, and there's 8 of them. Unbelievable. All right, first section of the show is Watch Your Step. Last week, I had kept up with the whole car theme, and beware of this idea that Dave Ramsey and others out there say never finance a car. Buy a beater instead. I call BS on that. So many situations where financing a car, even an inexpensive car, is often smarter for folks because it puts them in a position of more security and they get a better car. They get a car that is safer. If you want to go back and listen to that last episode, definitely. If you've ever talked to anybody about, should I pay cash or finance, or how am I going to get my kids a car? go back and take a listen to the last episode where I go through that. Beware of that idea of always paying cash for cars. That can be kind of crazy. Now, this week, watch your step. Be mindful of retirement accumulation versus retirement distribution when it comes to your financial questions and your financial decisions. And in this case, thank you to listener Mark in Orange County, California, for asking me about this, because I want you to really be careful, be mindful of the difference in accumulation versus retirement distribution when it comes to things like, for example, financing real estate. Okay? Just listen to this. Let me go through this. It's important to clarify, right, that the overall plan for buying rental property, you've got to understand what your overall plan is. Is it for accumulation purposes, or is it to grow equity and to grow value, right? Or is it kind of a combination of that? Is it for retirement income, right? Is it equity growth or is it retirement income? Because it can be both, right? But when you're talking about financing versus paying cash for real estate, this whole thing came up when I actually call out. I mean, at my little podcast, I call out financial entertainers like Dave Ramsey, who says you should always pay cash for rental real estate, which I think is actually really just a dumb idea. And it doesn't work for most people. Most Americans, there's no way that they can do what Dave Ramsey talks about doing and paying cash for real estate. And it's just flat out wrong, in my opinion, if the purpose is accumulation. If the purpose is to grow an asset and to have a valuable asset in the future, financing, in my opinion, is always the most efficient way to build real estate value. You're using the bank's money to acquire the real estate, right? And you've got a tenant paying for the loan. It's an excellent way to build long-term wealth in real estate. And it's also possible to structure things so that you do get a net profit, even if you have a mortgage. But if you're in the accumulation mode, and that's what your plan is with real estate, then having a mortgage allows you to use the bank's money to hold the asset, let the appreciation happen on the asset while a tenant pays for the bank, which is now, you get the point, right? This is the whole idea behind rental real estate for accumulation purposes. You're using the bank's money to control the asset. Now, paying cash for real estate and then renting it out is a totally different scenario. Now, the effective overall rate of return is much lower on paying cash for real estate, but you have a much higher net cash flow because there's no mortgage. So paying cash for a piece of real estate could be part of a retirement income scenario, but you have to have a substantial amount of cash to park inside the asset. And remember, paying cash requires this little reminder that the cash inside the real estate really earns zero. And the net rate of return can be heavily impacted by the 4 T's of real estate: taxes, toilets, trash, and tenants. And the other things like water heaters and air conditioning units and slab leaks and all that good stuff. But it's really important to remember that cash inside real estate earns zero. It is the real estate itself that has a rate of return. The real estate itself has a tenant living in it that pays you $1,500 a month. Okay, that's the idea. So if you had an investment like, let's say a basket of investments in an investment account, or if you had an annuity or something that was, you put in $300,000 and that investment kicks out a certain amount of income every month, right? The investment, the annuity, let's say, is kicking out the income. In this case, it's a house. The house kicks out the income, and the income is derived from the family of four that lives in it, right? Here's the thing. Unless you own, let's say, 5 or more rental properties with no mortgage, it can be difficult to build a net income that makes the risk and hassles of real estate worth it. Financing real estate is a great accumulation method, and paying cash is okay, but the returns are just not super exciting, and there's a lot of risk that goes along with owning real estate and paying cash for it. One of the biggest risks is just simply liquidity risk, right? Liquidity risk on real estate is enormous. How do you get money out of real estate? Only 2 ways to get money out of real estate. You've got to sell the property, or you've got to find a banker willing to give you permission to have some of your own money back. Just remember that. Again, I'm not saying that paying cash for real estate is 100% always a bad idea. I'm just saying that you've got to put it in perspective that paying cash for that asset, now we've got a $300,000 piece of real estate. All right, what's the net income, net of the 4 T's, taxes, toilets, trash, and tenants, and air conditioners, etc.? What's the net income, and how much risk are you facing for that net income? And now compare that to 2 or 3 other asset classes. And in a retirement income scenario, it's more often than not you find that other retirement income assets and vehicles pay a higher net income with less risk. That's the take on that. So don't forget, keep that in mind. Heads up on that. Now, the next segment 2, is actually my observation again this week. I just can't seem to get away from it. Maybe it's because I've spent so much extra time on the road lately. I did recently go to Dallas, and I picked up my latest car. I found a used Porsche Cayman, and I flew to Dallas. I used my Southwest Airline miles because I use the Southwest Airlines credit card to buy and pay for everything. So I do get airline miles so I can use them to fly places. And sometimes, every now and then, I like to do something crazy. So I flew to Dallas, and I picked up this car that I purchased, and I drove to Tucson, and then I drove to Vegas, and then I drove home. I got to see my family in Tucson and Vegas. It was kind of fun. Now, that meant I was on the road quite a bit and trying to find radio stations sometimes out there in the boonies of Texas and New Mexico, etc. I would hit the stations that have the best signal, and 2 or 3 times, I hit the radio station that Dave Ramsey was on. My favorite guy, Dave Ramsey, was on the radio, and he actually had given out a couple of pieces of advice that just, once again, just amazing. And this second one was stunning, absolutely stunning. And I'll share that with you in just a moment, okay? So Dave Ramsey actually got a call. And by the way, if ever you want to listen to this one, I don't do this every time, but I was on the road, so I really couldn't, I'm going 90 miles an hour on the freeway. Yes, the speed limit was 80, or 85, so I was going 90. And people in minivans were still passing me. I think someone in a U-Haul truck, if I remember right, passed me at 80 somewhere. I can't remember where. Kind of crazy. But I was hauling along pretty fast, so I didn't want to take my eyes off the road. So I just did a quick memo on my Siri on my iPhone. You just press the button, and I can record a memo without touching my phone other than to press a button. So I actually wrote down like the timestamp of when I told myself when the timestamp was so I could go back and actually get a link to the recording of Dave Ramsey saying this on his podcast, right? So he brought up buying whole life insurance. he brought up buying whole life insurance, right? This and that's the question that he brought onto the show, right? And this person called in to ask a question about life insurance. And hey, my grandma and grandpa bought whole life insurance for me, right? And now I'm going to take a step back. I get excited about this, folks. And if you're in that school right now where you can kind of feel your arms crossing and you're like, this guy, he's just full of it. Well, I'm here to tell you that I'm a huge fan of whole life insurance. Yes, I admit it. It is not right for everyone and every situation, but I'm a huge fan when appropriate. Absolutely. So yes, do I have a bias? Do I know something about it? Yes. Am I an expert in the topic? Yes. So that's why this stuff really drives me nuts. When I hear this kind of diatribe, this generic information that Dave Ramsey spews out, that he never ever changes it, even though he could be destroyed by countless financial planners who could, like myself, who could easily tell him he's totally full of it. Right? But he just never puts himself in a situation to ever talk to anyone like me that knows what they're talking about that particular subject. So with that said, back to this thing. He gets a caller on the show that asks about this life insurance policy that grandma and grandpa, they said it was great. And think about that for a second. Why would grandma and grandpa say that whole life insurance is a great thing? Why would they recommend it? Why would they buy it? Well, here's the thing. 50 years ago, there was no such thing as a 401k. There was no such thing as all of these crazy investments that are out there in the world. People had life insurance companies. They had big mutual life insurance companies, and they would put money in those life insurance companies, and they would never lose money, and they would actually use that money in retirement, and it was a great place to put money. That's why grandma and grandpa say thumbs up to whole life insurance, because their generation knows what it is. They know it's outstanding. It's a safe thing. It's not an investment, right? So the question comes in, hey, grandma and grandpa got me this policy, and I'm wondering what I should do with it. Now, Dave Ramsey knows nothing of this man's situation, knows nothing about the current life insurance policy, has no idea. But his immediate response was, it's a horrible bunch of products. Horrible bunch of products, right? That's it. Immediately. Now, remember, banks hold billions and billions of dollars in cash value life insurance. But Dave Ramsey says it's a horrible, horrible asset. Horrible. It's a terrible investment is what he says. Now, let me ask you this. Do banks ever really do anything that's bad for the bank? I mean, really, we know banks. Banks rule the world, right? Banks literally hold billions and billions of dollars in life insurance cash value because, in my opinion, it's a fantastic asset class. The Federal Reserve considers it to be one of the safest places that banks can hold their reserve money. Period. That's it. They hold money there because the Federal Reserve considers it to be one of the best places they can hold money. And here's the irony of all ironies, that you'll never, ever hear this from anyone else. I've never heard anybody else shine a light on this. Check this out. In years past, Dave Ramsey has had, Dave Ramsey has had ongoing marketing relationships with numbers of different banks. A very famous one, where they had a big, ugly breakup a few years ago, was a regional bank back in the East, Fifth Third Bank. Not a gigantic bank, but Fifth Third Bank. They were an educational program provider of Dave Ramsey's school education program they would run that through the bank. Fifth Third Bank had been a Dave Ramsey partner for a number of years. And it occurred to me one day that I wonder if they, the bank, hold any life insurance assets on their balance sheet, because it's so weird that Dave Ramsey says that whole life insurance and cash value life insurance is the worst thing, the most horrible asset investment on the planet. I wonder if his banking partner actually has any of it on their balance sheet. And sure enough, I looked it up. $1.6 billion in life insurance cash value on their balance sheet. I wonder if Dave Ramsey ever called up the finance department and the board of directors and said, hey, you know that life insurance that you own, that cash value, that's a horrible place. You shouldn't put any money there. I'm pretty sure the bank knows better, right? I'm pretty sure the bank and the entire team of financial people that help the bank actually know something that Dave Ramsey doesn't want the rest of us to know. Now, today, I looked it up because now Fifth Third Bank and Dave Ramsey separated because they got into a big fight. Today, I looked up one of Dave Ramsey's sponsor banks on his website, a small regional bank, really small regional bank, Community Services Bank, right? Super small bank. But they hold $14 million in cash value on their balance sheet. No public ridicule from Dave, of course, on this. I wonder why. Maybe it's because that bank pays him money to use their educational program. Of course, he's not going to say anything about their balance sheet. Nobody's ever going to bring it up. Nobody ever mentions it. Yet another super small regional bank sponsor uses, a partner uses Dave Ramsey's education programs. First Utah Bank, $6 million in life insurance cash value on their balance sheet. And one more for good measure, People's Bank in Tennessee, another really small bank, $4 million in cash value, life insurance cash value on their balance sheet. Man, all these banks that partner with Ramsey Solutions and their educational programs, where the head of that program says that whole life insurance is the spawn of the devil, the worst investment ever. By the way, it's not an investment. It's an asset class so safe, says the Federal Reserve, that banks can use it as an asset class. Right? If I thought I could ever get on the air to ask Dave Ramsey, why is it okay for his bank sponsor partners to hold millions of dollars in life insurance cash value, but it's stupid for everyone else, I would call in and ask. I'm pretty sure that I would never get through, and if I did get my question off on the air, it would be dumped. I guarantee it even. There is no way that Dave Ramsey would allow himself to get that question on the air, because how do you argue that? You can't argue. It's a fact. You can look it up. His banking partners and educational partners, they actually have millions of dollars in cash value in that asset that he says is terrible. And his advice immediately for this caller, Grandma and Grandpa got me a life insurance policy. Well, he doesn't know anything about that life insurance policy. I can tell you right now, I have seen some old whole life insurance policies that had been purchased for kids, grandkids, and such by grandmas and grandpas. And it is truly amazing how much equity has grown in these policies over the decades that some of these families have held on to them. They are incredible assets and an amazing wealth transfer. The generational wealth that is transferred because of life insurance is amazing, right? It's incredible. Now, I told you my last one was stunning. You saw the title of this episode, Stunning Retirement Account Advice. Now, I figured maybe someday, if I listened to Dave Ramsey long enough, I would hear something that would make me swerve my car off the road and, spin out in a ditch, right? This was close. This was pretty darn close. he had a caller that was asking about her retirement options at work. She's a teacher and has a school job, and they only offer a very certain type of non-guaranteed investment-based annuity. It's a 403(b) account, but it's a non-guaranteed annuity-based investment option from multiple companies. Now, what you will hear, and I've heard in the past from our friend Dave, is that annuities in general are another spawn of the devil, and any financial advisor that would ever sell you one of those horrible products is a terrible person, and you should never ever buy an annuity. I have heard him say that for years. I've heard him speak of the non-guaranteed annuities in very much the same light, like, oh, you should avoid those. Those things are bad. They're terrible. Well, this lady calls in as a teacher and says, well, that's the only option I have. And then he says this. He says, if you take a look at your options, you should still put money in those things. Definitely. You should still put money in that. Yeah, definitely. And I was kind of surprised. Okay, let's hear what he has to say, right? Because again, for the record, Dave Ramsey says in almost every broadcast I've ever heard, fixed annuities and non-guaranteed annuities, they suck beyond belief. That's what he says. They are horrible, right? Now, I personally believe that investments based on annuities are usually not a good idea for most people. Okay? Investment-based annuities are not a good idea for most people. This is my bias. This is what I'm saying. I have never really been able to understand a current situation or past situation, right, where I say, I just don't see how non-guaranteed annuities were a good fit. Notice that I said usually and most. It's not a matter of fact. Like, it's never a good idea, because there are times where it clearly makes sense, right? It clearly makes sense. But the idea that Dave Ramsey gets a question about non-guaranteed annuities and says, oh yeah, you should definitely still go for those. Those are the only kind that I would ever recommend. I would never recommend guaranteed annuities. Guaranteed annuities are horrible. They're terrible. That's what Dave Ramsey said. But, non-guaranteed annuity? Yeah, it's not the greatest thing, and the fees are high, but I would definitely search for the right kind of company and work with one of our investor representatives that you can find on our website, and you go work with one of them, and they'll help you pick the right annuity, and yeah, that's what you can do. What the heck, right? I still say Dave Ramsey must be getting paid under the table by Wall Street, because even he never says anything bad about Wall Street-based investments. I'm telling you, Wall Street-based investments. The one item I thought for sure he would say, oh gosh, I really don't like that. I'm so sorry. I wish you had better options. It was like, no, those are the only kind of annuities I would ever recommend. The guaranteed annuities, they're terrible. But, as long as you can, manage your fees and figure out your fees on these non-guaranteed annuities, you're okay, right? Here, he told this caller that guaranteed annuity is always horrible no matter what. And then guess what here's the thing. Guess what most teachers look forward to retiring on as a teacher? Guaranteed annuity payments. What do you think a pension is, folks? Pensions are annuity payments. That's the definition of a pension. It's a series of systematic and equal payments. Annuity, right? That's what teachers are longing to retire on. Only 7% of the working population in the United States nowadays has a pension, and they're basically annuity payments, right? But here's Dave Ramsey saying, guaranteed annuities are horrible. And most teachers are looking forward to retiring on guaranteed annuity payments. Now, it's true that guaranteed annuity may not be the best long-term accumulation vehicle. But when it comes to maximum retirement income, I submit to you, there is nothing that Wall Street has which can compete with guaranteed annuity income as far as security and long-term income. Can't compete, right? What did Dave say? They suck beyond belief. Unbelievable, folks. Come on. Now, that's me. I swear this is like a therapy session when I hear this stuff because it makes my vein on the side of my head pop out. What I'm trying to tell you is please ask questions for yourself. Please don't act on things or internalize things like this kind of financial entertainer advice without asking questions, without challenging it, without saying, hey, is it really always bad? Is it always bad, right? If I could put my mom on the phone with Dave Ramsey, she'd shut him down in a second. Like, hey, my mom has guaranteed annuity income for life. And she would ask Dave Ramsey, I'm not sure why this is bad. I get a paycheck every month. It's better than any investment account I could have ever gotten. How would he ever argue that? Here's a secret. He never will, because he'll never take a call like that, right? I've seen it one time in my life where a financial entertainer was sideswiped by a question and they had to backtrack and answer the question, and it was Susie Orman. Susie Orman got sideswiped by a question asked by someone who called in on a TV show she was on. She is another financial entertainer that's kind of fallen out of the spotlight as Dave Ramsey has become the biggest financial entertainer on the planet. Susie Orman is still out there. She's a very successful financial entertainer. She used to be a CFP. Now she's just rich and she's a financial entertainer. So she was taking phone calls and a caller called in to say and ask her a question. Because, just for the record, she, unlike Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman had always very, very clearly, adamantly said non-guaranteed annuities, investment-based annuities are horrible, always terrible, okay? Now, the caller said, my husband retired from his job and our financial advisor recommended that we roll over his retirement into non-guaranteed investment-based annuities. Now, Susie Orman, her head starts shaking back and forth, and she's like, oh, yeah. Like, she was really just getting into it like, oh, this is terrible, and she's just ready to go into it, right? Ready to go, oh, bad advice. And the lady says, well, we put all our money into these non-guaranteed investment annuities, and they kind of went up and the market went up and everything. And then the market really fell down quite a bit and we were kind of nervous. And then my husband died. Suddenly. And the insurance companies gave us back all of our losses. And I got back all of the money that we went way up high and then we went way down. I got all the money back. And she said, and I just don't see how we could have done anything better. And Susie Orman, again, now she's up against the wall. What is she going to say? Because non-guaranteed investment annuities are the spawn of the devil, according to Susie Orman, right at the time. She had to say it. She said, well, yeah, those non-guaranteed annuities, they do have a death benefit, and that's one of the benefits that's a good benefit. What? That's one of the benefits? That's an amazing thing. Name an investment account that rises up to great heights and then someone dies after it's fallen huge and the insurance company gives you back all of your losses, right? Or the investment company gives you back all your losses. There is nothing that does that. Now, I'm still not a huge fan of non-guaranteed investment class, annuities, but that's a huge benefit. And that's why I believe Dave Ramsey will never take my phone call. He'll never take my mom's phone call to say, hey, why are guaranteed annuities so bad? Or, hey, Dave, why is whole life insurance so bad, right? Why do your banks own so much life insurance? That's just me. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my podcast therapy session as I go through this, banging my head on the desk. Not really. Next time, let's talk about how financial planners get paid. Okay, let's talk about how financial planners, financial advisors get paid. It's a great question that came up recently from a listener, and I want to go over that. Remember my New Year's resolution. I want to help you get your estate plan in place. If you don't have your living trust, if you don't have your wills and your powers of attorney, please, if you've got kids at home and you don't have a will, a living trust, powers of attorney, what are you doing? Please get that done. I can help. I actually work with a phenomenal law firm that you can get that done through me. Send me an email, Kraig@kraigstrom.com. If you want to talk about it, we'll go through it, and I will help you down that path to make sure that you get it done. Take some action. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Personal Pension Radio podcast. We took notes for you, so if you missed any part of the show, you can find a full transcript of each episode at personalpensionradio.com. Be sure to download your free retirement income crisis report at personalpensionradio.com. While you're at it, we would appreciate some iTunes love. Please leave us a fantastic rating on iTunes by going to personalpensionradio.com/iTunes. Thanks again for listening. Now for the disclosure. Information presented is for educational purposes only and is not intended for solicitation, sale or purchase of any security or financial product. Be sure to first consult with a qualified financial advisor and your tax professional before implementing any strategy discussed here. The term personal pension refers to a marketing name designed to educate future retirees and retirees about the economic principles behind creating their own pension-like income. The term personal pension is not intended to be confused with a defined benefit pension plan offered by an employer or by a government entity.